Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts. And today I have a lovely guy called Fidel Beauhill, who's very much on the same page as I am in what he teaches around the masculine and the feminine. So without further ado, welcome, Fidel.
Hi, Lyn. Very nice for you to invite me on.
It's my pleasure. I love what you stand for. I think we're very aligned around what we teach and support people with around what actually creates and what actually attracts a really powerful, healthy, fulfilling, alive relationship. So what I really wanted to talk to you today is what do you do and who do you mainly work with, Fidel?
Okay. Well, my sort of brand, for want of a better word, is the modern man. On a sort of one-to-one level, I work mainly with guys, but I do work with a few women who just kind of want to connect with a more masculine energy in a coaching environment. Mainly the women I work with are spending a lot of time in their masculine energy and kind of looking to reconnect with their feminine and also understand their partners a bit more. But mainly I work with guys. I run the Modern Man Club, which is a Facebook community. There's about 800 guys in there, very, very vibrant community where we kind of talk and share a lot of stuff. And we've just set up the Modern Man Club community interest company where we work in gyms and with gym owners and personal trainers to run men-only sessions where we combine sort of physical fitness and I want to say mental health, but it's more about prevention rather than cure. I like working with guys to help them create habits and reconnect with their positive masculine energy, and create sort of habits, mindset, and a lifestyle that prevents them slipping into areas of bad mental health.
That's fantastic. I love that. What do you think have been the main problems in today's modern society that have affected relationships, specifically, from a man's perspective? How has it affected them and what's showing up for them in their relationships and what are you doing to sort of be the solution to that?
Wow, that's a big question. Okay, I'll do it bit by bit. So firstly, the main sort of problems I think that are affecting men on their side of the relationship is there's a complete lack of certainty, a lack of connection with masculinity, what that means, and a lack of seeing it in a positive light. I think that goes for both men and women. I speak to women and you say, you speak to them about feminine or femininity and they go, ooh, as if it's kind of weak and it won't get them what they want. And I think the same thing with masculinity. You say to women about masculinity and a lot of them sort of take a gasp in or there's a certain amount of fear around it because it's only seen negatively. And I think it's the same for guys. I mean, the main problem is if you're not feeling positive about, as a man, if you're not feeling positive about what masculinity is, if you're not clear on what that is and what it means to you, and you don't feel like it's a wonderful thing, then I don't really see how you can truly feel whole and connected and happy and grounded and focused in life. And I don't see how you can give yourself to a relationship without that. It's a real core element of personal development, I believe. There are lots of people in the world that don't connect with either masculine or feminine. We know that, and there's a great big conversation around that. But I think that conversation has completely almost taken over and dominated and left people who aren't like that, who do know that, who do feel like men and who do feel like women. It's left them feeling a little confused. Yeah. What that means in relationships is, again, for our generation particularly, I mean, I'm 42. My mother is in her 70s. I was blessed. She was a feminist, but she also had 4 sons. So she was focused on equality for women, but she was also really keen to make sure that her sons felt good about being men and boys, which turns out to be quite a unique thing, because I look around me and I don't think many guys got that balance where they brought up with true respect, understanding of equality, and looking at women in that way, whilst also understanding the positive aspects of masculinity and what that brings to the table.
I absolutely agree, because I suppose feminism has been misrepresented, because to be honest, a lot of feminists that I see and speak to and see on TV that talk about what they stand for are the most masculine energy females I've ever heard or seen, and they don't realise they're exuding that energy, and they're almost man haters somehow, to some degree. And it's not. I
kind of get it, because where we came from was a place where there wasn't equality. That's such,
true.
But
yes,
it just tipped too far, and I think one of my big moments was when I realised that what we've been doing is we've been focused on roles. So what we've been doing is we've been focused on what men and women do for their jobs and how much money they earn and who stays at home, etc., etc. And we've lost the fact that, do you know what? You can run a multi-million-pound international hedge fund or business and do it in your feminine energy. You can stay at home and you can be a man that stays at home and looks after his 5 kids and does the school run and cooks dinner every night, but you can do that in your masculine energy.
Definitely.
I think we've got confused, and we've said, well, in order for women to, what they want to do is compete with men in the workplace. And in order, they think that in order to do that, they're more powerful if they wrap themselves in a masculine energy. And actually, as a masculine man, when you're confronted by that, it doesn't make you want to support it or engage with it at all. It actually puts you off. So women are actually better off coming into that environment if they want to compete, or if they want to work alongside in business or in corporate environment, actually better off in their powerful feminine energy, because we're much more likely to be some sort of supportive, attracted and aligned with that when they do.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Or even if you are a woman who feels like she needs to be more masculine for whatever reason in a workplace environment, that doesn't mean you need to live in that masculine energy behind closed doors with your partner.
And that's the problem in relationships. And when I talk about this subject, that's where the connection starts, and the women go, and the men, you're talking about my life. Because what happens is we've got a lot of women who are out there every day in their masculine energy at work, being decisive, making decisions, running businesses, managing people. And they come home and they struggle to take that armor off. Plus, they also then need to continue making decisions, which I believe is the crux of the masculine feminine polarity is decision making. They make the decisions about the kids. They decide what's for dinner. They decide when the holiday is and who's going where and who's doing what. And then what happens to men is that they forget how to make decisions. They forget how to lead their family in a compassionate way, and it either becomes competitive within the domestic environment, or the men become emasculated and completely docile, and they just go, they just agree to everything, and that can work for a little while, but after a few years, the passion will die, the sex will die. Women will turn around and go, what happened to my man? The guy turns around and goes, who am I? Where do I fit into all of this? And quite often it ends up in affairs. Women will go off and find themselves the stereotypical builder, the gardener, the mechanic, and the guy will go off with the stereotypical, the secretary, the younger model or whatever, who allows him to be in his masculine. They bring that dynamic back. Yeah,
I think sometimes when I speak to women, they tend to think, to be feminine, they've got to be airheads, and dumb. When that's not the case.
I posted a video on my Facebook wall yesterday, actually, of a woman, an Italian weightlifter, who was absolutely stunning. She had big hooped earrings on, she had her hair tied back. She was gorgeous. And she did a clean and jerk weightlifting technique to win silver, and it was beautiful. But she did it absolutely quite a masculine activity. You know, she was lifting a big heavy weight, 3 times her body weight, but she did it with pure, powerful feminine energy. And I just thought it was such a shining example of that, and how you can approach the activity itself can be masculine or feminine, but how you can bring your own energy to that activity.
Absolutely. We're definitely speaking off the same hymn sheet here, because this is what I'm absolutely been propounding in all my episodes, is exactly what you're affirming now from the male point of view. And it is a myth, you know, for women to think that you have, you know, to be your true natural feminine self, you don't have to, you know, be an airhead or be stupid, or, you know, you just have to
be Beyonce. If you're going to be in your feminine, yes. Be Beyonce. That's my motto.
Yeah, just actually, you know, be your natural best self, which we've forgotten how to be, because we've been parented and educated, like you say, in the name of equality, which for me, equality means equal opportunity. It doesn't mean anything else. It doesn't mean we need, you know, we have to be or need to be, or, you know, it's not even desirable to be the same as men.
It's not, no. And I think the effect that that's having on men is, again, we've got a generation of guys who are not confident in their masculinity. There's a fear going on of how they're supposed to operate. They're worried about being decisive. They're worried about leading. They're worried about kind of disagreeing with women. They're worried about how to approach them in a dating sense. So I work with a lot of guys on dating, certainly with the new thing of online dating. And help them sort of be masculine in a compassionate way, what I call positive masculinity, and trying to sort of reconnect with that and what that means, you know, and how to take the lead. And it's astounding how many guys just don't know how to do that, or are worried about doing it. So we've got a bit of a culture of fear with our generation of men. Yeah,
and this is another thing I'm educating people around, predominantly my client base is women, you know, about coming from a place of love, not fear, you know, because it's when we come from a place of fear that we attract those toxic relationships, you know, because sure. Even within toxic relationships, you do have that polarity, but you haven't got that healthy polarity that you can manifest and attract for yourself if you're coming from a place of love. For sure. Well, the way I kind of explain it with guys is it's leadership with compassion and thoughtfulness. So the kind of the masculine energy is there. The example I use is like with tango dancing. Yes. Where it's such a beautiful example of, and any kind of dancing really, it's such a great example of how the two energies work. You know, you've got very clear masculine energy, which is leading and share. But the feminine energy has to trust that the masculine. She can mess up the whole dance if she wanted to, and if she wants to take over and she wanted to lead, then she could. But it would ruin the dance. Whereas actually, if she allows him to lead, which she will do, but only if there's trust there. Only if she trusts that he's not going to step on her toes and he's not going to drop her. You know, so we have to take responsibility for that. We have to learn the skills to not drop our partners and to not tread on their toes, and to lead with care and consideration. And in that way, we generate the trust and the faith in us, and that allows our partners to step into their feminine a lot better. Yeah, because I think for a lot of women, they just want to feel safe and secure. Absolutely. And, you can't and won't be in your feminine energy if you don't feel safe and secure. You know, that's really hard. That's a big ask. Yeah, and we do really definitely want men to trust and protect us. But you know, if we've come with baggage to that relationship where you know that trust has been broken, or we've been through trauma where that trust has been broken, then sometimes you know it's very hard for women to realize that A, they are actually in masculine energy, and B, how to let that go. you know, how to take off, like you say, that suit of armor to again open your heart and trust this new man that may be in your life, or an existing man that you've not opened up to, but you know he's a good man.
For sure. But it's really important that we have this dialogue, that this conversation is had out in the open, and is kind of gets people thinking and understanding the roles and what's actually happening here, because it's not a conversation that's centre stage, and it really should be.
Very much so. I was just thinking that a lot of women were like, you know, am I giving my power away if I'm allowing the man to lead? No, of course you're not. You know, the feminine power is just as powerful as the masculine.
If not more so, because like I said, in actual fact, it doesn't work unless we are allowed to do it. So the women give their permission for us to lead. The feminine gives the masculine permission to lead.
And plus,
without that permission, then it becomes something else. Then it becomes leading by sort of force, and that's when it becomes toxic, you know. So it only actually works when we're doing it with permission.
Yeah.
It's a bit like sex, you know. It's not a bit like sex. It is. That's the kind of the crux of it. Is actually, as a man, we can lead and we can be in control. But you know, unless we've got permission, then it's something else entirely, isn't it?
Absolutely agree. And going back to the dancing analogy, I always sort of talk about dancing in the same sort of way. And I always say, well, think about Ginger Rogers. I think one of her quotes was that she could do everything that Fred Astaire did, except that she could do it backwards and in high heels. So there's no loss of power within that dynamic.
Not at all. And I just think, you know, I think it's sad in a way that we look at it in this kind of competitive, almost selfish eyes, both men and women. That's what they're looking for. The worry is, I'm giving away this and I'm giving away that, and it's like we've lost that sense of community and that sense of partnership. You know, that it's about giving stuff to each other and serving each other, rather than kind of protecting your own interests, which seems to be the priority for a lot of people. And that's where the problem lies.
It certainly does. I feel that, unfortunately, you know, again, I do agree that, you know, that there are obviously small sections of the population that do need careful consideration around, you know, who they are and what they are, because they're not clear about they are gender confused, you know, that they might be in, you know, part of the trans community, or, you know, they've got body parts that they're actually born with that are both masculine and feminine. So I do understand.
Absolutely, but I kind of think that they're having their own conversation, you know, and that's cool. What you don't, if to be kind of like I'm pro man, but that doesn't mean that I'm kind of anti woman, and it doesn't mean that I'm anti transgender or anti gender neutral. You know, I'm fully supportive of what those guys want to do on their journey, and I'm trying to learn and understand it, but it's very, very difficult, in the same way that they don't feel connected to how I feel about my gender and about my masculinity. It's the same way I feel about them. It's hard for something that's so intrinsic and so core to who you are. It's really, really difficult to understand where someone else is coming from with it. You can be empathetic and you can be considerate of it, but it's really, really difficult to understand it unless you're feeling it. And that's cool, but like I said, I don't think we should have that conversation at the expense of the rest of us and the people that do feel like masculine men and feminine women.
Yeah, 100% agree, because I think what's happening now, you know, with the PC brigade and this drive towards being more gender neutral to make these people who are the minority, who we do have compassion for, feel like they're fitting in, you know, making allowances for that. By doing that, I think we're going a bit too far, in that we're now making everybody feel gender confused, and that's not the answer.
No, it's not the answer. No, for sure. So I'm here trying to have that conversation, and so by the sounds of it, you are too. I'm just trying to get guys to to say it's okay to be a man, it's okay to feel like a man, it's okay to want to be a man. But what does that look like in a positive context?
Yeah, and you know what? That's what women want. You know, healthy women really want to feel that masculine energy. You know, they want a man to take the lead. They want a man to make them feel protected and loved. They want a man to assertively grab hold of them and kiss them with a lot of passion. They want a man to throw you over their shoulder and run you up the stairs and throw you on the bed and ravish them, you know, obviously consensually within a... Yeah. But, you know, that's what they want. And I think, like you said, you know, men are fearful now to be that strong, healthy male. And this is what women are craving. And yet, as I say, with women sort of being educated more and parented more, and society gearing us up more to be gender neutral and be more, stepping and living in our masculine energy, we're not attracting those sorts of men.
It's interesting. Well, we kind of, I think all men are capable of doing it. And in some ways, sort of speaking from my own point of view, you know, we are the sort of, the more powerful the woman, if you see what I mean, if you manage to unlock their femininity, you know, and then that almost empowers your masculinity even more. So like a moth to a flame, we are kind of drawn to that. And it does bring out the best in our masculinity when we are sort of dating or courting or chasing a woman like that. The problems really, though, start after once the relationship begins, because it all of a sudden then flips, because what men then want to do is please their partner. Yes. And then what women think that they then learn how to ask for what they want, and then the men kind of feel like they then need to deliver. So you just get this weird shift in dynamics where the women actually just start leading and the guys just turn around and go yes, 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 and they just become yes men and sort of people pleasing, which isn't attractive at all.
No.
So the relationship soon dies.
Yeah.
I just see this cycle happening time and time again. So what we need to be mindful of is what happens sort of afterwards, I think. I
agree, because we're not actually aware, you know, that we are doing that. And that's what, you know, I suppose I feel my mission is to educate women more around, you know, how not to be like that, and how to live in your feminine energy. What does that look like, you know, in a healthy way? And, you know, so that you don't sort of cross the boundary and become the man in the relationship where you're wearing the trousers, and that's either causing conflict or it's causing him to step more into his feminine, which isn't attractive to you.
Exactly. It is a sorry state of affairs, but one we will tackle, mainly because there's a big desire out there for it, as I'm sure you're aware. You know, there's lots of women who are crying out and starting to understand that. And I think there's more of a conversation geared towards women on this front than there is for men. I mean, again, I use social media and I put up a post about men becoming sort of physically strong again and coming, you know, there's a lot of conversation out there for men going, oh, we want you to be vulnerable, and there's power in being vulnerable, and we want you to open up, and we want you to talk, which is basically saying we want you to be more feminine. And it's like that this is the solution to all men's mental health, is to open up and talk. And it's like, well, actually, there's loads of guys who don't feel comfortable with that, who don't want to talk, and that's okay too. You know, you're not talking isn't the be all and end all of the solution to men's mental health. I think in order for us to connect to that vulnerability and talk to the right people at the right time, we need to first become strong and feel confident, confident enough to sort of protect ourselves, and confident enough in ourselves to then open up and share and talk and be vulnerable. And so I think that's actually the first step. So we're running a program working with gyms and personal trainers to get guys actually back in the gym, lifting up some weights, doing self-defense stuff, doing boxing and things like that. And with that comes a real confidence in their masculinity. And you know, as a consequence, we should feel more comfortable being in our feminine when we need to be, because there is a time and a place for both people to be in both. Do you know what I mean?
I agree, yes. You know, and that's why we've got both. You know, there is times and places where it is appropriate, you know, for a woman to step into a masculinity if she feels threatened, or there's a dangerous situation, or, you know, that she needs to be more assertive in the workplace or whatever. And the same, like you said, for men, you know, it's not that we don't want to see that vulnerability from men. You know, when men are strongly in their masculine, to see them being vulnerable, you know, if they're watching it or listening to an emotional film or piece of music, that's quite still masculine, you know. And it is. But you know,
I interviewed a guy who, because we've got something called kind of like nice guy syndrome, which is a bit of a problem, where you've got a guy who isn't confident in his masculinity, isn't able to express it, doesn't feel strong, doesn't feel powerful. And then what happens is they end up being the nice guy, and they end up doing a lot of people pleasing, and it's not genuine, you know.
No.
They do stuff and they say yes, and actually what you see, the outcome of that quite often is very, very manipulative people. It's they can be quite abusive emotionally, because they become sort of bitter and unhappy with themselves. And then they try and sort of blame the people around them. And the nice guy syndrome is a real problem these days. And actually the answer to that is to get guys reconnecting again, I think, with their strength and their masculinity. And then when you open up and tell your story and your vulnerability, it doesn't become a pity party. It comes from a place of power, you
Definitely.
know, and then it's an inspiring thing to listen to.
Yeah.
Rather than sitting there wincing, you know, listening to a guy kind of pouring out his heart or whatever, or, you know, complaining or moaning, you know, which is negative. It's okay to sort of talk about your problems, but talk about it from a place of where you're grounded and confident. I think we all suffer from stuff. We all have problems. But rather than sort of whinging, moaning about it, what you're doing is you're talking about a problem, looking for a solution, or just sharing it, but coming from a place of comfort and confidence is a different thing altogether.
Yeah, like you say, coming from a place of comfort and confidence, again, I sort of relate to coming from that place of love, and where you have got that healthy masculinity or femininity, and the opposite, you know, if you've got the unhealthy masculinity, you're coming from that place of fear. So for me, it comes around, you know, back to that, you know, are you living from a place of fear in your authentic masculine, or are you living from a place of love and confidence, like you say, whether that's masculine or feminine? Obviously it goes either way, but yeah, I just despair sometimes of I suppose where I see the misunderstandings around equality and the misunderstandings around political correctness on what people are perceiving that really means, and how that's now damaging our intimate relationships.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I just think we need to. We're kind of just in danger of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, in a way. And when we're trying to develop the sort of the modern man element, and we're trying to get guys to be softer and more open and more communicative and stuff, we've forgotten to talk about actually we still need to be strong. We still need to remember how to lead. We still need to remember how to be decisive.
Yeah, because it's not attractive to a woman if a man's bursting into tears every 5 minutes.
No, it's not. It's not exactly right, you know. And I just think, in some ways, it's going against the grain, and it's going against the kind of the message of the moment. Almost some of the stuff that I say, and I do come in through a bit of flack with it.
Me too.
And so, you know, you've got to pick the right times and the right people to show. Really important for men to have their male friendship groups. This is something that's lacking a lot in a lot of relationships. What will happen is the guys, the sort of the family dynamic will all become centered around the woman's family and the woman's friends. And a lot of times the guy's only friendships will end up being the partners of his wife's friends, you know, because they'll spend every weekend around her friends' houses, and he'll become mates with the partners of her friends. Do you get what I mean? And he'll lose touch with his own mates and the people that he feels comfortable opening up to. And in the end, then the only person he's got to open up to and talk to is his partner. And I think that actually doesn't work all the time. There are some things as a bloke where you need to just go and talk to your mates about. And then when you come home, you know, you've got it all off of your chest. and you're able to come back to your partner and be the guy she needs.
That's exactly the same for women too. I think sometimes women think that it's they need to share everything with their partner, and sometimes it isn't appropriate, because they're not the things that that men necessarily understand that you're venting about. So you're probably best to think who'd be your best girlfriend to vent or share that with, rather than bombarding your partner who may not really understand from a masculine perspective what the fuss is around, or he may just want to, as a man, want to give you a solution when that's not really what you're looking for. You're just looking to be heard.
For sure. And again, women they say that they want men to open up and tell them everything, and when they do, again, their instinctual reaction is ugh. It's almost repellent to them, although they like the idea of it. They like, because we've been sold it by Hollywood and Disney, or whatever, that we want these vulnerable men to come out and share everything with us. But when men actually do talk about that, and I've certainly noticed it with mental health issues and stuff, I've got guys who've been through lots of relationships and really, really struggle, because as soon as they open up to their partner and go, well, actually, I'm really struggling today, I've got this depression, I've got suffering from anxiety, I'm really scared about going into work or whatever. And I'm not, it's an instinctive reaction rather than a conscious one. It's not something that people want to do. Obviously, women want to help their men and be there for them, but kind of when it's a kind of constant unloading of that energy, it brings a different dynamic to the relationship, unfortunately.
It makes the woman feel like she's got to take the responsibility back for the relationship, and almost, like you say, then step more into the masculine role, which doesn't feel comfortable to her. It can feel quite overwhelming to feel like you've got to be the be-all person to everybody, inside of that relationship, and take responsibility for everything. You want your man to carry his weight in terms of leading and taking charge around certain aspects within that relationship, and not to feel that burden that, oh my God, I've got to carry him as well now.
For sure. And it almost sounds callous even having this conversation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A little bit. And I think when you have it in public, people will be listening, and lots of women listen, no, I would never do that, or I'd never be like that. And again, some women aren't and don't, but I think it's more elemental than that. It's more primitive than that. It's something that comes from our core, because again, we all desire to be the person that can support and listen to their partners when they're going through all this stuff. But something else happens inside, I think, and we just need to be aware of it. I think, rather than kind of escape from it, just kind of notice it, be aware of it, and look for other solutions. I think there's the other reason that the thing about sort of male therapists and stuff. I think a lot of men, if they want to go and open up and look at therapy, they'll initially go to a female therapist, and I think actually it's a lot more powerful.
Yes,
especially in a group context as well. Men sort of sharing their stuff with other men is a much more powerful therapy.
I would agree with that.
Than it is going and doing it with a female therapist, which is kind of why I do what I do, really. But yeah, it's something that's can be a little bit daunting for guys unless they're confident already in their masculinity.
I almost feel like it'd be a good thing. I don't know if it'd ever happen, if we went back to either single-sex schools, or at least single-sex classes within unisex schools, to give boys more of an opportunity to be amongst their peer male energy.
I think there is something to be said for that, Lynn. I think there's something to be said for that. My father's Jamaican, so I spent quite a lot of time over there. And I went over and I was talking to an American lady the last time I was over there. And she went to a really progressive university, and it was completely separate. It was a university, but the boys were on almost a separate campus. We had separate classes, and to the women. Yet they came together in a sort of social aspect, and it had the lowest rates of sort of sexual abuse, of lowest reports of rape in the entire country, like by a million miles. So there was this whole completely different dynamic going on there when men and women were separate, but coming together at sort of appropriate times. And it was amazing how much healthier the dynamic was and the relationships were between the men and the women at that particular university. Astounding.
Yeah, and I think more studies around that sort of thing would be beneficial, because I do think there's something to be said for, women primarily, mixing with other women so they learn to be more authentically their feminine selves, and the same for men, within that masculine, more exposure to that masculine environment, especially more so today, because when you think about it, think of all the single parents, mainly they are women, and there's very few male role models as such within those families sometimes, or positive male models. And so, you do see a lot of men or boys growing up to be not really understanding what their own true natural masculine energy feels like, even.
For sure. Well, they don't know what it is. And I mean, I'm a big fan of sort of combat sports, especially for young boys. I mean, I box. I used to do Japanese jiu-jitsu, and I've been involved with lots of other sort of things. And I just found that by doing that and being in that male environment and having a wrestle with my mates, and almost sort of play fighting and testing each other and challenging each other in a positive environment is essential, I think, for masculinity. But don't get me wrong, there are some boys that don't want to participate in that. But for a lot, I think by kind of like eradicating that sort of stuff from the curriculum, I mean, even at its basic level, like rugby, we're kind of weeding that out as well. But being part of the football team, being part of the rugby team, being involved in wrestling, in boxing, it's kind of what boys want to do,
Absolutely.
And then what we also miss out then is healthy physical contact that isn't sexual. Like this whole big thing starting in the kind of 80s, this kind of almost anti-gay movement made boys almost scared of touching each other for fear of being homosexual or being called gay or whatever, which is just crazy. And now you've got kind of like just touch has become sexualized. So like two boys wrestling at a point where they hit sort of teenage years, it's like, oh no, they don't want to touch each other. And actually, when we sexualize touch, I think we're in danger of sort of removing ourselves from each other, from a community, and actually kind of guys are meant to wrestle with each other, and there should never be a sexual connotation to that. I think it's absolute nonsense. And there's also no danger, I don't know, we worry about boys and girls being hurt or whatever, but again, it's part of life, isn't it?
We're getting a sort of we're becoming a society of almost robots that are being mollycoddled, aren't we, against being in the normal rough and tumbles of life. And I feel like, though, hopefully with people like yourself and myself, that we can create a shift back to what is normally and healthily acceptable, and which is going to have a huge positive impact on our intimate relationships.
For sure. I think what we need to do is there needs to be a new way of doing it. Again, that's why I chose the name Modern Man. I think is we can't go backwards, all right? And I don't think we want to. We literally, from a financial perspective, we can't go backwards. So most households wouldn't survive if we went backwards to one person staying at home with the kids and the other person going out at work. Our society doesn't. We live in a capitalist society. It's designed for everybody to go to work and pay tax, so we can buy all the stuff we want but don't need. So we're in that now. So what we need to do is design a new way, and I think the key to that is disassociating gender with roles. I think that's really, really important to it.
Yes, absolutely. It's key. So yeah, all power to us then to join forces and create some sort of movement towards,
for sure,
a drive to what is naturally within us anyway, but we've forgotten how to be, and what is going to create, a happier, healthier environment for everybody. Not just heterosexuals, but for everybody, you know, to feel
For sure.
comfortable with who they are and not feel like, you know, oh my God, I've got to be offended now because I'm being called a woman.
And that's exactly that. So when men are confident in their masculinity, and they're feeling fit, strong, confident and grounded, then they are less likely to be aggressive towards anybody else, to women, to transgender, to gay people. You know, it's like that. It dissipates all of that rather than the opposite. A lot of people kind of like fear masculine men because they wrongly see it in that negative way, that negative masculine energy, which is imbalanced and unconfident. Whereas actually, if we teach people to feel confident in their masculinity, then that's all about being protective. It's all about nurturing. It's all about, you know, being considerate. It's all about being a positive member of the community. So there's all of that stuff is more likely to go away.
I agree. So power to that process, and let's hope we, you know, over the next decade or so, see that positive shift that we're trying to create to make all of this happen.
That's the plan.
Well, thank you so much, Fidel. I'd love you to say something more about your company and how people can get in touch with you. I'll make sure that information is in the show notes anyway. But you know, if you'd like to just announce who you are, what you do.
The first sort of step is our free men's group, the Modern Man Club, on Facebook. So just search for that, the Modern Man Club. I also have my own podcast, which is the Modern Man Podcast, which is on all the various platforms, Apple and Google and everywhere else. My website is www.modernman.org.uk. Or you can just look me up on Facebook. My Facebook profile is public, Fidel Beauhill, Beauhill, and connect on there, or send me a message if you want to chat about sort of coaching or reconnecting with your masculinity, guys.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, because it's such a pleasure to have a man to talk to about men's issues and for men to go to, because primarily a lot of my episodes have been focused more towards women and helping them and supporting them, and it's lovely to be able to address that balance. So thank you very much, Fidel, and I really appreciate you coming on. And as I say, I'll make sure those contact details I'll put in our show notes as well.
Thanks very much. Cheers,
listeners, just to wrap it all up, as you know, I reinforce true love starts with opening our hearts. So until next time, goodbye for now, and thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group Two Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's LYN@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.